Germany's ambassador to South Africa, Martin Schafer, joins me now on this matter. Ambassador, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to The Full View.
Good evening. Hello. How are you?
I'm very well, Ambassador. Thank you so much for joining us. And before we get to the gist of the matter, Ambassador, we understand the United States has indicated that it will support the waiver of those protections for COVID-19 vaccines. And President Ramaphosa, on the other hand, has welcomed the position adopted by the United States as an important reinforcement of a campaign that was, sort of led by South Africa and India on behalf of emerging economies that face vaccine shortages and production challenges. So why is the European Union seemingly in opposition to such a waiver?
Well, I cannot speak on behalf of the European Union, whilst the country I represent here in South Africa is part of the European Union. Let me speak on behalf of my country. We indeed do have our doubts and maybe even reservations about this move, simply because the patents are undoubtedly a source of innovation. Without giving the individuals or the companies that have developed in no time whatsoever, in record time, those vaccines, the chance to get their investments back, I think the next time nobody would want to produce such products. No, but that is not the decisive point, I believe. The decisive point is here that I have been working personally here in South Africa for the last 3 months with South African government, with cabinet ministers, with the BioVac Institute, with Aspen Pharmaceuticals, to see what can be done and in what way Germany and other countries can help get vaccine production in Africa for Africa. And the problem, quite obviously, in South Africa and in the rest of the continent is not the availability of licenses on those patents. The problem is that in South Africa and in other parts of the continent, nobody is able to produce the vaccines with the quality standards that are necessary. So I think the way to go would be a lot quicker by ramping up production facilities. And I can tell you that we have been in discussion with the BioVac Institute for the last 2 months and with the South African government, and we are very close to striking a deal with them, with the South African government and the BioVac Institute, to make sure that they get the chance to ramp up their production facilities for the production of vaccines against COVID and other diseases in Africa, for Africa.
All right, we'll get to, the details of that deal and the bilateral relations between South Africa and Germany in just a moment, Martin. But the opportunity for a green, resilient recovery from COVID-19 with economic stimulus packages supporting decarbonization has been underscored. But the world, you'll recall, that it ground to a halt last year thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. Didn't that take us 10 steps back from keeping the momentum towards COP26?
I believe that the pandemic, in a strange kind of logic, will help us with climate change. Because in many ways, the pandemic and the dangers related to climate change are very similar. It's a man-made problem, and we only find a solution if everybody comes to the party. Germany alone, South Africa alone, or other countries alone will not be able to overcome the pandemic, and standing alone, nobody will be able to solve the issues around climate change. So I think the lesson learned here is, and I'm so glad that our American friends and partners have come to the party again. The solution is in multilateralism. The solution is in working together. And the German Chancellor today at the Petersburg Climate Dialogue announced very new measures that Germany is going to take to make its contribution to overcoming, the crisis of climate change. We are going to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions until 2030, by comparison to 1990, by 2/3. That's a huge effort. That it needs a lot of change in the way we deal with energy matters. But we believe it is possible, and we would like to be something of a trailblazer, both in our national commitment, but also in international solidarity.
Well, let's talk about Germany's support to South Africa with regards to the energy transition. What are the dictates of that particular bilateral relation?
Well, it is. We start from a fact that is not very pleasant, but still it's a fact, and we have to be honest with one another. Energy production in South Africa is not reliable. Everybody in South Africa knows that. It has become expensive, and it is dirty. There is no country in the world where 1 kilowatt hour of electricity is produced in a dirtier way than in South Africa. So there's an obvious need to change on all those issues: the reliability, the cost, and the greening of all of it. And we have since who was in South Africa last February, right before the outbreak of the global pandemic. She and President Ramaphosa agreed that we are going to engage in a strategic bilateral relationship on issues relating to the fight against climate change. And we have identified in the meantime three pathways in which we believe that we can make a contribution to the fight against climate change with some change in South Africa. The first would be, and maybe the most promising, the hydrogen economy. South Africa is probably the best suited country in the world to produce green hydrogen to fuel the energy needs of the world. You have Sasol with its industrialized Fischer-Tropsch formula. You have a modern logistics, you have an industrialized country. There's a lot of opportunity for South Africa. We would like to South Africa, second of all, in changing the way the electricity grid works. South Africa has great experience with the number of generations of IPP tenders, as they call it, which means giving South African and international companies the chance to tell South Africa at what price for each kilowatt hour they can deliver electricity from renewable sources. And the prices are incredibly low. They have fallen in the last 10 years by 2 or 3 times. And a kilowatt hour out of wind in the Western Cape, a kilowatt hour of electricity out of the sun of Mpumalanga is so cheap. It gives you, South Africa, the chance to quickly transform your entire electricity production. Now, for that, you need a smart grid. For that, you need an electricity grid that is able to get the electricity from decentralized sources, say from a windmill in the Western Cape or a solar plant in Mpumalanga, to where the electricity is consumed. And we do have a lot of experience in that field, and we would wish to share that with South Africa. And third of all, and maybe most important of all, the just transition. There is understandably some fear, some anxiety in South Africa in those sectors of the economy, amongst trade unions, where people work and fear that they might lose their living because of the change in the way South Africa produces energy. And we in Germany too, we have a number of experiences in phasing out nuclear energy, in phasing out coal in the next 10 years or so, that we would like to share with South Africa. And we come with the offer of an industrialized state that will help also financially South Africa to get that.
All right, Ambassador, we certainly hope that you and I will have more of these conversations, because it's very, very important, as the issue of renewable and clean energy has always been on the cards. And we certainly hope that the German government can provide more solutions and clarity with regards to, the support structure that the government will avail to South Africa, whether it be in the spheres of resources or technical expertise insofar as providing clean, renewable energy in South Africa. That was Ambassador Martin Schafer, German ambassador to South Africa.